And Brandon, let's close the podcast with a new segment. Here's the thing. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, this is at the end of the podcast. If you are on YouTube, however, this has come out along with our first segment of the podcast because we're making our picks. Last year, we had a separate video, us in front of the green screen, where we're making our own picks, and we only picked like 5 or 6 games to pick. This year, we're going to try something different. It's going to be the last segment of the podcast each week, and we are going to pick and kind of discuss a little bit every single top 25 matchup. So if the game has a top 25 team in it, we will pick it for that upcoming week, and we are going to pick week 2 action here on the Primetime Podcast. And Brandon, first thing I want to say about these games is, as Colin Cowherd would say, a few clunkers in this week, because this is where we had all the good games last week. We were not quite into conference season yet. This is where we have some let's go play a cupcake team.
But there are actually some good games though. There's a couple.
There's a sprinkling, but we're going to start things off. We're going to start things off with the Friday night matchup. Number 10 Oklahoma State against 0-1 South Alabama. Who you got?
It's going to be 0-2 South Alabama after this week. Oklahoma State, who cares? They're going on the road. It's Mason frickin' Rudolph.
3 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, it's going to be too easy for him.
Yeah, I've got the same thing. Cowboys winning this one in an easy one. Maybe a 5-touchdown performance for Mason Rudolph. Maybe South Alabama puts up 10 points to make it somewhat of a game. Then we have Saturday action moving into the Saturday games. The first one, Lane Kiffin, Florida Atlantic, going into Madison, Wisconsin to play number 9 Wisconsin. Florida Atlantic didn't look too well last week. Hornibrook in Wisconsin looked good, especially in the second half. Could Lane Kiffin upset the Badgers?
Yeah, if he was still with Alabama. But it wouldn't be an upset. But Wisconsin gets the win at home.
No, I'm going to go with this is broken record. Same exact thing. I was expecting a little bit of a better performance from the Owls last week with Lane Kiffin. Hornibrook looked phenomenal in the second half. I expect Wisconsin to play better from the start in this one at home, not let Florida Atlantic go into halftime tied 10-10 like they did the Utah Aggies. Badgers with the win. Then we've got Michigan back at the Big House going to play in Cincinnati, both 1-0. Who gets their first loss?
It's going to be Cincinnati. Michigan, after a great game against Florida, they are going to be at home. They're going to be riding high. After that Florida victory, this defense is going to tear Cincinnati apart.
Yeah, Cincinnati getting the win over Austin Peay last week, 26-14. Guess what? Michigan is not Austin Peay. Wilton Spate and Ty Isaac will be able to win it for Michigan at home. Then the big one. Number 16 Louisville struggled against Purdue last week, going into North Carolina to play the Tar Heels. Do we have our first upset, Brandon?
You know, actually, this is a tough one because North Carolina looked pretty good against Cal, lost 35-30. Louisville comes in on the road. I'm going to say that Louisville will get this win. It's another close one, but I'm going to say Louisville does get the win here at North Carolina.
I was expecting to pick the Tar Heels. I was expecting it because you guys know who I'm going to pick. It's Lamar Action Jackson. I'll very little of the time, few times I'll pick against him.
You better hope that he can still put that action on his name after after this week, because his stats may have been good last week. His team was not. He's the team leader, so I mean, don't be talking him too much, on this one. If he gets a nice win, then we can start talking about him again.
I believe it was week 2 on the road last year at Syracuse where he really earned the moniker Lamar Action Jackson. Let's see if we'll have a same game, similar performance here on the road at North Carolina. I got the Cardinals winning it. Then the Bulls from South Florida, Charlie Strong and company going into Connecticut. I'm going with the Bulls. I am high on them. Already 2-0 to start the year as they played that pseudo week 1 2 weeks ago. Who you going with, B, the Bulls or the Huskies?
I'm going to go with the Bulls. They had a slow start against Stony Brook, but they ended up getting the win 31-17. I'm going to stick with South Florida.
Then we also have the Kansas State Thundercats. I know they're Wildcats, but I just like calling them Thundercats because of your logo. coming back home to play the 0-1 Charlotte 49ers, I want to say they are. And this one's another one. No disrespect to Charlotte. K-State gets the win.
Yeah. They won 55-19 in week 1. They're going to get the win.
It's one of those games where Ertz had 4 touchdowns. Expect him to add a couple more to the resume. Then an 0-1 West Virginia team playing East Carolina. I know Will Grier played good, but I'm going to go bold here. I am going to go with the 24-point underdog East Carolina to beat West Virginia at home.
Well, you're nuts and wrong. West Virginia played a really good, really tough game against Virginia Tech, and Dana Holgorsen, the head coach for West Virginia, very happy with his team, actually. Said he felt like it was one of those games when you lose to Alabama. You played really well. You just ran out of time. That's exactly what happened. They lost 31-24 Virginia Tech. West Virginia is going to get the win, and, I mean, I like your boldness, but it's just flat out wrong.
I got to go with one bold pick a week. One bold, but here's the next game. I'm looking at the early line. Of course, these lines will most likely change as we get through the week. But Alabama, only a 1-point favorite at home against Fresno State. That's ludicrous, right? Because the Crimson Tide are going to come back to form and win this game.
Well, the Crimson Tide still have their defense, don't they? Then they're going to win this game.
I mean, even if Jalen Hurts played like 96 yards, 1 touchdown, and a win against Florida State, Bo Scarborough only had 40 yards last week. This is Fresno State. It's not Florida State. No disrespect to Fresno State, but I just see that 1 point, that -1 for 1-point favorite for Alabama. I think that should be a little higher. At least a touchdown. At least a touchdown favorite for Alabama over Fresno State. Am I wrong?
Well, see, let me tell you, Ricky, when you're able to have a quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and he only gets 96 yards and a touchdown, and you still win that game, those are the games that you are like, glad we got that one. So Alabama's going to win this one by plenty more than 1 point.
Then the next one, we've got the Battle of Pennsylvania, the Pitt Panthers, the Penn State Nittany Lions. Right now, Penn State a 20.5-point favorite. Any chance Pitt gets the upset in this one?
Yeah, sure, there's a chance, but Penn State, the way that they played week 1, it's not going to be a very good chance.
Yeah, I expect Saquon Barkley to have himself a couple more touchdowns, maybe 2 or 3 on the day here. I expect Penn State to get a big win at home in Beaver Stadium playing against the Panthers. Then moving right along, another cupcake game. No disrespect to Arkansas State hosting the Hurricanes from Miami, but I expect Rozier and the Hurricanes to get the win on the road in Arkansas.
I know it was Bethune-Cookman last week. 41-13, though. Miami looked good. They'll definitely get the win this week.
Then moving on, Delaware going into Blacksburg, Virginia to play the Hokies. I'm not going against the Hokies. Would have picked them last week if we did this segment against West Virginia. Picking the Hokies this week, getting the win at home against Delaware.
Yeah, I'm going to take Virginia Tech, too. They looked good last week against West Virginia, won a tough game. They'll win this one at home.
If Delaware still had Joe Flacco, I might pick them in this one. But Joe Flacco has been in the NFL for a while, won't be playing in this game for Delaware. Then we got an interesting one. San Jose State, 1-1 on the season. Texas coming back home. Does Texas bounce back, get the win against San Jose State?
Yeah, San Jose State isn't going to be able to win this one. Texas does bounce back. It was a really tough week 1. They're at home again. They've got to win this one. If they don't, I'm
going to ask you this now. This is the trivia question for the week.
Great.
Notable alumni from San Jose State. Played with the Chicago Bears, was a backup for Mark Trestman. Do you remember who? David Fales. David Fales coming from San Jose State.
What a big name.
And then now the next game, they are right now 0-0 because they are in overtime. I knew bashing the Vols. Vol fans are going to let me have it this podcast. I can just tell it. But Knoxville, Tennessee, the Vols playing the Sycamores from Indiana State. I hate to do it, but I got to go with the Vols over Indiana State.
Yes, you're right.
I thought Brandon was going to pick an upset there.
No,
a little bit of a pause. You got me. I'm like, I was thinking about it.
I was reading a stat from the game tonight.
And then we've got Louisiana Monroe, Florida State. Even with the true freshman, I think this should be an easy win for the Seminoles, starting off the Blackman era right in Florida State.
As we talked, it's going to be that game that he needs before they play Miami, and Florida State will get the win.
And now we get two good ones. Number 12, Auburn. Number 5, Clemson. I'm going upset special in this one. I'm going number 12, Auburn, to beat number 5, Clemson on the road in Clemson, South Carolina.
Jarrett Stidham looked pretty good. Kelly Bryant looked pretty good. Clemson's at home. I'm going to go Clemson.
So yet another one. Brandon and I kind of flip-flopping here. Then another one in Columbus, Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield looked really good in week 1. Ohio State started out slow, got the big win over Indiana. Who are you going with? Number 7, Oklahoma. Number 2, Ohio State.
We saw this matchup last year. Oklahoma, high on them, thought that they were going to be in a good game with Baker Mayfield and everything like that. This one's at home for Ohio State. I'm going Oklahoma. I'm going Oklahoma. I think I probably said the same thing last year. I like Baker Mayfield. He can really light it up. We'll see what happens.
I'm going with the Buckeyes. This defense is going to be too much for Oklahoma, and plus, I love Paris Campbell and the speed that he brings on offense for this Buckeyes. I expect them to get the win on ABC in Columbus. Then another cupcake game, 13 LSU hosting Chattanooga. I love Chattanooga, love saying your name, but the Mocs will not win when they play the Tigers in Death Valley.
I'm going to have to go LSU.
Is that your Ed Orgeron impression you're bringing back?
I tried.
I didn't know you were coming on the podcast today, Ed. How's it going?
Good.
But LSU getting the win. Then another interesting one. Notre Dame hosting Georgia, who will be playing. It's basically Brandon Winbush against the freshman and from Georgia. Brandon, I know you have a little bit of Irish shade to your glasses here, but who are you going with, the Bulldogs or the Irish?
Jacob Eason not going to be with the team for this one. I'm going to go Notre Dame.
I'm going to go Georgia. I think that Fromm played well enough in week 1, will help Georgia. Nick Chubb will be the one they lean on in this to get the win against the Fighting Irish.
Notre Dame looked like they finally woke up from a season-long hibernation last year.
That's what happens.
It was good to see them come out and Wimbush, being able to make a couple of things happen. I thought that looked pretty good.
That's what happens when you finally have a quarterback also.
And Josh Adams at the running back position looked good as well.
And then 4 more games to round it up. 2 kind of cupcake ones, and then 2 ones that could be interesting. First cupcake one, 17 Florida hosting Northern Colorado. Gators with the win. This is an easy one.
Yeah, they looked bad last week, but they're going to have to pick it up, but they should get the win.
Then number 8, Washington hosting Montana. Got to go with the Huskies.
Yeah, Washington, that one's easy.
And now the 2 ones that could be interesting. First off, the real interesting one, 14 Stanford, who got a huge win in their first game, scoring, 62 points in their first game. I believe it was over Rice, playing USC and Sam Darnold, who struggled at home against Western Michigan. This one will be in L.A., Who you got? You got the Trojans, or are you going upset special here, Brandon?
I'm going to stick with the Trojans in this one.
I thought you'd bite it. I thought you'd bite the upset special.
I'm going to stick with the Trojans in this one because they are at home, and Sam Darnold is going to bounce back from last week. I think that, week 1, you're trying to shake the rust off. However, though, if he has back-to-back weeks of trying to shake the rust off, that's not too good. But I'm gonna stick with the Sam Darnolds in USC.
In a straight-up pick right now, I am taking the Trojans. However, if this line stays where it's at right now, at -7, I might be, as a betting man a little bit, I don't bet, but sometimes I like to think I do, I would take Stanford in the points. This one might be close. Could be a 3-point victory for the Trojans. So take Stanford in the points.
I always love your picks. I'm going to go USC right now. But if I feel like it later in the week, I may change and go Stanford.
No,
that's just how you pick.
That's the thing. With this one, if I'm picking a straight-up pick-em like us, I'm going the Trojans. But if I'm going to go with the line right now at 7, I may just pick Stanford, because even if the Trojans win by 3, that is under the 7 line, and you'd still win for picking Stanford and taking the points. And then our last game, the 10-point favorite, number 24, Washington State Cougars, playing the Boise State Broncos. Who you got, B?
Well, for shits and gigs, I'll go Boise State.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cougs. I'm going to go Cougs all day in this one, going Luke Falk and Du Bois to get the 10-point win.
Yeah, I really don't care on this one.
But also, one thing I forgot to say, because we are recording this on Monday this week, these rankings might be different than what you heard because of the Tennessee game, which, kind of give an update on that because of how I mentioned early on, Tennessee's up 42-41. So right now, if that score holds and if Georgia Tech misses the extra point, I could be putting a foot in my mouth as I trash talked them at the beginning of the podcast. They were down 24-7. I made a joke against them, and now they're in double overtime. Could be a tie game going into third, but also could be a 1-point win. I want to thank you guys for checking out this edition of the Primetime Podcast here on Most Valuable Podcast. I forgot to do this at the beginning of the podcast, but go check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. We revamped it. It's a way for you guys to help support us more so than watching and liking our videos. $1 gets you an exclusive Patreon podcast every month, audio. $2 gets you the video of that podcast. And for $10, you could be a guest on the Primetime Podcast each and every month, or a guest on any of our podcasts here on Most Valuable Podcast. I want to thank you guys one last time for giving us the watch or the listen today. But for Brandon Swanson, my name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, have a good day, everybody.